Hello there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be on the planet. Welcome to AAU TZM podcasts. Well, welcome to this edition. I hope this podcast reaches you all feeling well. This particular show is just going to focus on miscellaneous, just odd questions that I've received over the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, that I've spent advocating this direction. So I will waste no further time and I will jump straight into them. So get ready, because here we go. Okay, question 1. You say that all crime will be non-existent. What about crimes such as rape and murder? How do you propose that you will eradicate that? Okay, well, either myself personally or the movement will not single-handedly eradicate any of these problems. It's up to society whether these problems will be solved. I mean, we can lend a helping hand, but enlightening people and educating people, but it's ultimately not up to us. It's up to society. I mean, first of all, it's not necessarily the whims of the movement or the Venus Project that will be the deciding factor in our societies moving away from behaviours such as murder and rape. The shift in value systems will be self-evident. People will, as they gain more information about themselves, each other, and their environment, and how all are interconnected, will slowly cease their perception of themselves as separate entities from everything else, and in the process become less and less inclined to inflict harm on another person. I mean, when I say it will slowly cease, I mean that it will gradually transform into values that are much, much more beneficial to the individual as well as society as a whole. I'll give you a for instance. When you go into work tomorrow, imagine that all your colleagues are not actually colleagues, but in fact they are members of your own family. A family that gets along well, that is close and has an open compassion and honesty. I guarantee you that when you start seeing other people as family instead of separate beings from you, that you will start treating them much better. And the progression towards these altruistic behaviors may not be gradual at all. It can be instant as well. When you look at a colleague and you consider that you could care for them just as you would care for a sibling or a child or a parent or a relative or whichever, you will instantly be able to start treating them better. And it doesn't even matter, even if at first you didn't like this person, or even if there was a strain or discourse in your relationship with them, because I think that there is a natural tendency to be nice to those who are nice to you. It's what is known in body language terminology as mirroring. And even if there is this stress between these two people, how cataclysmic is the act of just being nice? How disarming is it for a certain someone who just wants to belligerently insult and abuse people, for those who he or she targets to respond with altruism? And that is one of the values that will be honoured in an RBE, the consideration of anyone else as a member of your own family, and even in ways as yourself. Because to harm another person ultimately means harm to yourself. That's one of the agreements we have with a lot of fundamental teachings about all religions. I mean, treat others as you would want to be treated. Now, since we are talking about rape and murder with this question, I'll illustrate just one of the factors which constitutes and facilitates the act of rape in our society. I mean, there are many different kinds of examples that explain the incidence of rape, but this is just one of them. Women and young girls going out wearing next to nothing, being fed alcohol as though it's some sort of elixir, in a nightclub full of men who are on the pool and determined to get laid. I've observed this strange value in function actually, and in addition to this, some women actually like to play guys off of each other and even tease them to the point of dangling the figurative carrot in front of the donkey and then acting extremely indignant, offended, and even affronted when a guy tries it on. These women are surrounding themselves by males who feel they have this deserving right to have sex with them, and I'm sorry to be blunt here, but acting like prostitutes, and then they're surprised when they get raped. I'm really sorry that I had to put it as bluntly as that, but this is the stark reality of what we're seeing all around us. I mean, of all the reported rape incidents, which is surprising considering a great portion of rapes are not reported, 1/3 of those incidents involve the excessive consumption of alcohol. Now, doesn't that just scream of a self-fulfilling prophecy? Haven't we learned our lesson with alcohol yet? Obviously not. Now, with that scenario, just to detail, that's just to detail one facet of the issue. I mean, there are many, many of them. But I have clearly illustrated that the incidence of rape is nothing more than a cultural phenomenon. We have this desperate need for alcohol as a culture, and not only that, but the belligerent value of consuming it excessively in order to gain some sort of antidote or respite, away from the stresses in our lives. Now, place that mentality inside the heads of women who are surrounded by men who are driven by, let's be fair and admit it, quite primal urges of sex. Being constantly enticed by the flesh that the women show and the teasing behavior, then I'm not surprised in the slightest that incidents of rape happen in these circumstances. My only surprise is that this isn't reported a hell of a lot more, because we can guarantee that the incidents of rape are much higher than the reports of the incidents of rape. Now, this is, of course, a symptom of the outgrowths of scarcity. I mean, alcohol is one thing within itself, but really, the overarching formality is that this is a scarcity issue. And the fact is that we've lived within scarcity for our entire existence, thousands of years. It is expected for a group of primates to compete in sexual competition to acquire the most desired mate. I mean, we see this abundantly throughout the animal kingdom because they live within scarcity. And just as it is expected for males nowadays to compete with each other to acquire the most attractive females, and unexpectedly, it is even more strange to see that these males are even competing with the female's sense of decency and inhibition when the males are not getting what they want. Now, I'm not saying that it's entirely the woman's fault, but it is the value system that we're conditioned upon to accept this as normal behavior. Well, maybe not normal, but at least accepted as a condition of the real world. Something that is just a part of this world because that's just the way it is. Not only that, but the only real solution that we see in our current paradigm is the idea of punishing those who fall victim to its built-in temptations. It's like putting a pig in front of a full and inviting trough of food and then punishing the pig for eating from it. This is not how we solve these problems. The only way that we can truly solve these problems is by addressing the root causes of these behaviors and values and seeking a solution that tackles that root cause. Okay, coming to the other side of your question, when it comes to murder, we need to be more specific. I mean, because there are many reasons why people kill others. However, still, when we boil it down, we must still go to the root of the problem. And I will state almost exclusively that, I don't know, with the exception of crimes in the name of, religious fundamentalism, I mean, the old George Carlin quote, more people have been killed in the name of God than for any other reason. But that aside, I will state almost exclusively that the root causes are down to the monetary market system and or scarcity and the distorted values and neuroses that are bred out of that. Because even rape is a symptom of the neuroses created by scarcity. I mean, look, let's be honest, it's not sufficient and actually futile to merely state, oh, it's because he's a lunatic. That isn't a root cause. Why is that person considered a lunatic? Because he just is? No one is just anything. There is nothing more than a cop-out for those who do not wish or simply can't be bothered to address the root causes. Take, for example, the killing spree in Cumbria 2 years ago, perpetrated by a man called Derek Bird. Now, it was a big media story, but if you browse the list of possible motives for his actions, they all have a monetary element to them, at least in their genesis. Especially since two of the most probable motives being the dispute over a will between himself and his twin, and the fact that he was under investigation for, wait for it, tax evasion. Okay, question 2. How about crimes of passion such as murder through jealousy? I can understand how theft is a monetary crime, however I don't understand how we will grow out of jealousy in our relationships, for example. Okay, that's a good question actually. Crimes which are motivated by jealousy or feelings of inferiority or superiority have to do with our value systems. In our current values, we consider our relationships within a materialistic framework. That's why we use the terms my wife or my husband. It's a standpoint of possession. And like all possessions, we see fit to protect them as they seem to be we seem to consider them ours by right, when in fact they're not. We don't consider our spouses to be our slaves, so why should we treat them as such? And further than that, a relationship is an institution based on choice, not on mandate, meaning that we choose to enter and exit our relationships. We have the right to choose regardless, because once a person decides definitively that they no longer wish to be in their relationship, then boom, the relationship no longer exists, does it?